There is much talk these days about fidelity to the Freedom Charter and the possible need for legislative changes to allow for asset redistribution in the banking, mining and agricultural milieus. Do you think possible constitutional changes are indeed a requirement to safeguard such fidelity?
You know, the Freedom Charter, of which you see a copy here on my wall, and the 156 people that were charged with treason for advocating the adoption of the Freedom Charter. The state theory in bringing the charge was that it was a communist document which was going to bring fundamental changes in the country and was therefore treasonable. 3 judges heard the trial from 1958 to 1961, and they were all acquitted. And the judgment of the court was that this was not a communist document, but a document of a socialist character. And there were many socialist countries in the world, and the comparison of its provisions to the socialist country's constitution was put forward in great detail by a great team of lawyers, of which I wasn't one, but my closest friend, Duma Nokwe, the first African advocate with whom I shared chambers, was one of the accused. Nelson Mandela, that I became a friend of in 1948, and others that had become friends during the then comparatively short period. I knew them, and the court judgment was, no, that this is a document which is a socialist document. It calls for an egalitarian society, but not a Marxist solution to the problems. You know, documents that are drafted during a struggle are aspirational in some respects. But what the court said, the 3 judges said, was accepted by the African National Congress. During the course of the negotiations, there were 22 parties at CODESA. I was one of the participants on the ANC side, although I've never been a member of the African National Congress, for a specific reason, that if you can't act for an organization if you are a disciplined member, you're supposed to retain your independence. And because I acted for the ANC and its members a number of times, but this constitution requires fundamental changes, in some respects by 2/3 majority, and in some respects even higher majority. The nationalization proposals that have been made did not have the support of the leadership of the African National Congress. In 1994, and I believe, I know most of the people in the National Executive, I don't think that the majority of the people in the National Executive want the nationalization of mines or banks or any other business venture. I was close to Mr. Mandela then, close to him up to now, and the other leaders. They were of the view that South Africa has to become an egalitarian society, and that we must work towards it in order to avoid poverty, in order to avoid unequal education, in order to avoid unequal health services, and that not anybody should be hungry. Everybody should have an opportunity of lifting themselves up into a decent living, decent health care, proper education. I believe that those who say that more has to be done, I applaud them, and I think that we must all try, including the mining houses, including big business, to really bring about an egalitarian society. The gap between the rich and the poor in the country is the widest, I believe, in most of the world. It used to be Brazil, but I think that they have overtaken us in making their country a more egalitarian one than ours. I do not believe that the elected members of Parliament, including the majority of the people in the ANC, would vote for the fundamental changes to the Constitution before any of those demands by the small group that are calling for mass socialization would get the necessary majority in Parliament. We have independent courts, even though some people cry wolf, that I think that there is an inevitable competition between the organs of state. I don't say the organs of government. I don't consider the courts part of the government. They are an essential part of the state. I think that that will prevail. I'm almost certain of it, that it will prevail. I just can't see there being any party who can get more than 2/3 majority in order to... they complain about the land. I agree. I am at the Legal Resources Center. We actually act for communities who were deprived of their land. This business that the people can only get it back if it is nationalized. Haven't read the Constitution properly, and they maintain that to pay market value is not correct. That's not what the Constitution says. Both the landowners say that they want market value, and the opponents say they're not prepared to pay market value. The Constitution doesn't talk about market value. It sets out 4 or 5 factors to be taken into consideration as to what is to be paid if the land is lawfully expropriated for public purposes. Some of it belonging to large farmers may well be, the case can be made out for the expropriation. But the factors to be taken into consideration are not market value. And it says, when did you acquire it? What money, possibly from the land bank, did you get at a favorable interest rate in order to enable you to own 1 or 2 or sometimes 5 or 6 farms? What taxes have you been paid on the use of this land? Did you own an airplane which you travel to Plettenberg Bay every long weekend, and did you put that down as a farming expense? In order to bring some egalitarian principles. We foresaw this, and this is why the Constitution, in which I took a part in the drafting of, but it was not. Sometimes I notice that those who say we want nationalization, it was drafted by a group of lawyers and capitalists and small officers. It was an open process. In Codesa, we traveled from town to town and lived from cheap hotel to cheap hotel, explaining what the Constitution was about. The media explained what the Constitution was about. And I actually hope that the slogan, "Don't blame the Constitution," catches on. These generalizations, white people this, black people that, is not a dialogue. It's really sloganeering, and it should not be taken seriously by serious-minded people.